Right, so up next, we have Zoe Selman. Zoe specializes in OSINT and CTI with experience in private and government sectors. Also, as we can all see, she is a DEFCON goon. She's also a Blue Team Village founder and former Trace Labs director. And so the topic that she'll be speaking on is OSINT Privacy Unmasked, taking control of your digital footprint in a hyper-connected world. Now that sounds interesting. So please give it up for Zoe.
Testing? Okay, cool, this works. Great, awesome. So we'll be talking about OSINT Privacy Unmasked, taking control of your digital footprint in a hyper-connected world. Most of you are going to know me. Most of you are actually going to know me online as Verbal, but you guys can also call me Zoe, so that's cool too. Oh, uh-oh. Sorry, Mac problems. Oh, there we go, sorry. Okay, so g'day guys, I am Australian. I do live in the United States now, but just a little bit about myself. Thank you for the intro. I am one of the co-founders of Blue Team Village. Woo, Blue Team! I'm one of the also OG directors of Trace Labs back in its early days. Shout out to Trace Labs. And I also did some volunteer work on the Innocent Lives Foundation as well. If you guys want to find my socials, Twitter, Mastodon, whatever you want, you can find me on Linktree, and that link is there. Sorry, I'm going to move this. There we go. This is better. Okay. So, I play Dungeons & Dragons. I've always wanted a character card, so here we go. I am a human druid. I originally went between lawful neutral and good neutral, but I decided lawful neutral was the best fit. I am from Australia, and yes, OSINT is my special ability. I've always wanted to do that. So what is this talk actually about? Why are we here? So there's a lot of talks about OSINT and how to do OSINT. There's a lot of awesome content by awesome people about how to actually execute OSINT. But how do we actually go about defending OSINT? Because we're all victims of OSINT. We're all actually being targeted with OSINT, whether you're an organization or an individual. And so there actually needs to be more information about how individuals can actually go about leveraging what is out there about themselves to actually remove it and better secure our privacy. So this is the talk that you're not here for. The exit's that way. Level 0, just to kind of ground set and level set with everyone, open source intelligence is actually OSINT. That's what it stands for. OSINT is collecting and analyzing public information. This is public information that can be accessible by anyone. And just to kind of just level set there with everyone, just so everyone in the room knows what that actually is. Some other things that will be spoken about today is PII, which is personal identifiable information, which is essentially information that can be used really to identify anyone, really. This could be a name, a phone number, an email address. It could be an ID number. Anything that is directly correlated to you is classified as PII. So we'll talk about some of this about later on. And we'll also be talking about some privacy acts too, and what that actually is. It's essentially a privacy act essentially governs how our data is collected, how data is controlled. It's dependent by state, dependent by country, and every single state, county, country is going to have slightly different privacy acts as well. So level 0. Okay, so where are we at in our privacy today? Where is our privacy at? The first thing that I like to say is if it actually does exist, if this information exists, it can be found. It can't be found, it's when will it be found. You can always find information, but it might not be it may not be available now, but it will some point become available. Maybe it just takes that specific data breach to happen. And so that information is always going to be available at some point. There's actually a funny thing that's kind of happening is even though we're in that kind of digital information age, where even though we're all aware of privacy, of social media, of those risks, despite all of that, our footprints are actually becoming larger and larger. It sounds kind of counterintuitive, but that's actually what's happening. There's more social media platforms being created every day, more things we're signing up for. These days you have to sign up for everything, and people are signing up for all sorts of different things just to get access to services of things. Things that you didn't actually have to sign up for, you now have to sign up for and give them your information to do so. This comes at a risk because it's actually way easier now for attackers or just anyone really to leverage that information. Not even attackers, but just people that are performing OSINT or want to find information can relatively find that relatively easy now. So, DEF CON reference, whose privacy is it anyway? Privacy is becoming less of a right, unfortunately. Obviously privacy will always be a right, but as things are becoming more online, things are, it's our actual privacy is getting taken away from us. We're less in control of what data we have out there and how that data is actually being used. So, when you're signing up for things, who knows where that data is going? It can end up anywhere, and the consequences of it is actually very drastic, and our privacy is eroding drastically every single year. The thing is, though, organizations love this because they monetize off our data. Data is being sold, data is being exchanged, data is becoming a currency. There is now a stage where data is actually more important and valuable than actual money itself because you can exchange information. Things that organizations want is data and information, and so our data and information is incredibly valuable to organizations. And so the thing is that is kind of difficult for us is we know how to do the OSINT, we know how to find the data, but because of the nature of organizations wanting to keep this data, there's not really much information about how to actually remove this data and where this data is actually going. So this is going to be kind of jumping into how to take back control of your data and understand where your data is going and how it's being used. Okay, so the first thing you actually want to do, I'm going to break this down to different steps. And yes, I love Game of Thrones as well. You actually want to identify your comfortability levels. And this is really important because it's going to be unique to each person. There's going to be some people in this room that don't want people to know their name. And there's going to be some people in this room who are okay with putting their name out there. And so it's totally up to you what information you feel comfortable with. But you've got to start there. You have to know what is okay out there and what you don't want out there. So identifying, do you want your email address out there? Do you want your phone number out there? Who are you okay giving this information to, and who are you not okay giving this information to? In a blue team term, we would call this like a scope. And essentially, this is what we're doing. We are scoping a project. And so we want to set ourselves a scope. We want to know and work out and sit down and brainstorm, okay, well, I don't want my social security number being out there, but I don't mind if people know my name. And once you kind of have that distinction, it's very clear what you need to remove. Until you've identified that, you don't actually know what you need to remove. So that's where you need to go, what is okay to be public? And it's once I said, it's going to be dependent on you, what your role is, how public you want to be, and every single person in this room is going to be totally different. So if one person, doesn't want to reveal their name, that's totally fine, up to them. But it doesn't mean you don't have to, it's totally up to you. And then working out what information crosses that line and, documenting that and being aware of that information. Okay, this might be the most important slide I talk about, so please do pay attention to this. Please create separation. I will repeat that. Please create separation. And what I'm referring to, I mean your separation between your work profile and your online profile, your personal profile. That is really, really important because let's just say you have 10 social accounts. 5 of them are work, 5 of them are personal. If you use your personal information for all 10, you now have doubled your footprint for no reason. If you use your work information, which is already publicly accessible, because it's probably on your LinkedIn page, and then you use your personal information for your personal stuff, you have just halved your footprint. So things like using your work email for things that you would use for work, using your work mobile for things you'd use for work, creating that separation is so important, not just from a stance of an individual, but also from the stance of an organization. Organizations should encourage their employees to create separation. And once again, you have to kind of identify what is actually used for work and what is not used for work. A good example of this would be, say, for instance, if you were to be in a data breach and your work account gets breached, but you've used your work email address, you've used your work address, which is on their website footer anyway, and you've used your work mobile number, the level of risk is relatively minimal. And then it would be up to your organization to determine what to do, because you work for them, and then you can notify them that, hey, like, this has happened. That kind of creates that separation between, what you're responsible for in terms of your data. Whereas your personal information, you can then also, do the same sort of thing, use your personal emails, use your personal information there, but having that separation is just super important. Minimizes the footprint literally by half, depending on how many accounts you have, what you use for work. I know when I was going through my stuff, I used so many work accounts, and I'm like, oh yeah, okay, I literally just halved my footprint, just like that, and it was, drastic. So I do encourage, if you're an individual, do take this initiative, and if you're an organization, please do encourage your employees to take this initiative too. And also evaluating your public presence. This may seem obvious, but there's a lot of people that actually don't do this. You need to know what data is out there about you to actually be able to identify what you need to remove. And the thing is with this, a bit of cognitive bias will come into play here. So yes, you can do it yourself, of course, but I do recommend actually someone else doing it, like a friend, someone like that who you trust, because you're gonna know where your information is, and you may actually also not look in places that other people might. And so that is actually the best way is, you do your own kind of OSINT on yourself, and then get a good friend to also do some OSINT on you too. So you have two sets of data, and you can work out, okay, well, this is what is actually out there about me. If you're an organization, you can actually hire people to do this for you. And this really gives you general awareness of the type of data that is out there about you or your organization. You can't really, it's kind of like a pen test. You have to do the pen test first to know how to fix it. It's the same kind of concept. You have to understand what is out there, what the risk is, and where people are getting this information from to then mitigate against it. So we've done some talking here. I've gone through a few actionable steps. We've spoken about you actually need to create the separation, you need to identify what you're comfortable with, you need to do some OSINT on yourself. But what we're actually here to talk about is more deeper than that. How do we actually go about removing our data? This is the stuff you guys are probably here for. And we're going to answer that. And so please do be patient with this, because it is a little bit of a lengthy process in the way that things actually get broken down, and how we actually have to go about doing this. Data brokers. Love data brokers. No, I don't. Okay, so opting out of data brokers is something that I really recommend to everyone. This is just a small list of data brokers, but things like Experian, Equifax, LexisNexis, TransUnion, Axiom, CoreLogic, they are kind of what I call the kind of top data brokers. That's where most people are getting their data from. This could be things like marketing campaigns, ads, people, when you get those people that send you mail that's like, you've been qualified for $1,000. This is where they're getting that information from. So opting out at the top level is going to be the most successful thing. And it's a bit of a slow process because they don't make it easy. They want your data. This is the problem we have with privacy today, is they want your data because they monetize off it. And so they make it as difficult as they possibly can. I have been through this process multiple times. I recommend it, but you do have to be patient with it. It is something that does work, but it does take time. It isn't immediate. You might not see any real results for 6 months. But you will eventually notice that your footprint is becoming smaller and smaller. You'll start getting less junk mail, less spam, less phone calls, things like that, because that data is no longer available. Unless, of course, they're updating it again if they're getting it from another data broker. Fun times. So yeah, you really want to start at the top. You want to start at the top of the food chain, which is with the main data brokers. Another one on this list that I didn't mention is Oracle. I didn't know they actually had a whole entire data broker business until recently, and I was like, oh wow, that's wild. But yeah, they actually make a bunch of money on data broking. So that's another one on the list. And I will actually have some resources that I will distribute after this talk, along with obviously the slides and things like that, with a long kind of to-do list for everyone that is actionable, with these links and resources and things too. So once you've actually gone through and opted out of them, how do we actually go about doing that? One thing that you can actually do is every single of these sites and data brokers will have a privacy policy, I would hope. You can actually go into that privacy policy and you can just kind of do like Control F and filter for keywords like delete, remove, until you find the section where it gives you the opt-out functions. I know when I did this with, I think it was Equifax, there was about 6 different opt-out forms I had to fill out. As I said, they don't make it easy. They make it incredibly difficult because they want your data. And so opting out is a bit of a process here. But the other thing as well is, that will overall filter into making your footprint smaller. Yes. Now we're going to talk about data collectors, which also goes hand in hand with the opt-out process for data brokers. I wanted to just call out here that the FCC resources, they are not a data collector. Just want to make that really, really clear. They actually have a fantastic resource on their website that lets you opt out of like marketing core communications. They push out like they put you on like a do not sell list essentially, and over time when people kind of fetch this list, you will not be on there. So they kind of push that out on a bit more of a US-wide scale. I really recommend that because they have you on like a do not call list, do not email list, do not mail list, and there's actually a bunch of different subsections on the FCC site that you can actually opt out from. And they're very granular and specific about what you can and can't opt out of, and they make it very clear and simple. But another thing as well is internet providers. I wanted to also specify that opting out does not stop the service. If you opt out of something, if you're opting out of like Equifax, TransUnion, credit reporting bureaus, you're not deleting your credit score, you're not removing your your credit score data, that still exists. It doesn't impact your credit score or any of those sort of things. So I think there's a bit of a misconception there. I want to just clarify with everyone. What you're essentially opting out of is opting out for them to use your data for monetary purposes or to trade or whatever transactional purpose they use your data for. Whether it's monetary or for another purpose or for another marketing campaign or organization. Same with internet providers. Opting out doesn't stop your service. You're not like deleting your account per se. You're just telling them, hey, you can't use my data anymore, and they should be cool with that. Phone providers, people search sites. I tend to kind of call these, I guess, like the bottom feeders, I guess, because you have the top data brokers, and then you have these guys where they get a lot of their information from, but they also collect information, so therefore they're kind of in the middle, and they also distribute information. Rewards programs. Okay, I have a funny story. So I moved to the United States 4 years ago, and when I moved here, I thought it'd be cool to sign up with a bunch of reward programs because I wanted to feel like I belonged here. So I was like, yeah, sure, I'll sign up with Kroger. So much regret. The thing with rewards programs is they kind of try to convince you that you're going to get something beneficial from it, like $5 every 3 months. But you kind of got to think, okay, is that actually worth them having my data? Do I need a Kroger account? Do I need a Publix account? Is there a functional service that they're offering me where I need an account for? And kind of going through that and understanding, okay, like Dick's Sporting Goods, do I need an account for that? Maybe you do, maybe you don't, up to you. And this goes back to understanding like what you want out of your data privacy, because everyone's going to have individual goals on what they're trying to achieve. For me, I went through and I deleted so much stuff, and it was fantastic, and I'm like, yay, I'm free of the rewards programs. So yeah, working out, what you're wanting to have out of that or not. The thing as well is, sometimes when you sign up for things at the little bottom, at the bottom of the sign up screen where they say like, yes, I agree to the privacy policy, check what's actually in the privacy policy, because they may not actually state in the line there that they're selling your information. Some places will actually have it separate, but it's dependent on how their legal team has done it, to be honest. Some places you can actually check like, yes, I agree to the terms and conditions, but no, you can't, keep my information for marketing purposes. But then some will just have like one where it's all just clustered in together. So if you're accepting to use their service, you could just be accepting everything collectively. So you also got to kind of weigh out the pros and cons of that too as an individual, and work out, is that something that you want to risk? Is that a service I really need? How much exposure is this going to provide, my information out there to the world? Same with, phone providers are notorious for sharing information, as I'm sure we all know. People search sites, they collect information and they share it, and you can pay for information and things like that too. But they get a lot of that from collectively everyone else, and also historical records as well. One thing that I actually did not add on this slide, but I wanted to mention, is county records. You can actually go to your county or whatever counties you have lived in, and you can actually request everything they have on you. That is totally allowed. They have to give you everything that they have, or any sort of records. It's kind of like a FOIA request, but for just you in your county. They'll give you whatever records they can provide, and then some records they'll even let you redact it as well. It's dependent on what their county and state laws are, so I can't be too specific around it, but you want to check with them on what can actually be redacted. So if you're really wanting to go gung-ho on this and really hide everything, that might be an option for you, is checking with your county records. Okay, the actual data removal process. This might sound kind of intuitive, but you actually want to start with your password manager. And this is a great place to start with because it gives you a record of everything you have access to. So it's essentially a log for all the sites you've signed up for. So you want to start there. I did it in alphabetical order because that worked for me. And as I said, it's a bit of a lengthy process. But you can literally just go site by site by site and go, do I need this? Yes, no, log in, delete the account. There's a few different ways you can actually delete accounts. Some places will actually let you log in directly and delete the account, which is great. Clap to them if they do that, because that's fantastic. Some places you have to actually go into their privacy policy and actually do a account deletion request via that. And then there are a couple sites I've come across where they don't let you delete that unless you email them. So there's that too. And you can email them, and usually they're pretty responsive, and they can go ahead and do that deletion request for you. But this is essentially a great place to start when you're looking at how do I actually remove my footprint. Start with the accounts you already have access to, the things you already signed up for, because this is going to help everything in future and help overall minimize your existing footprint. Conduct regular maintenance. The first time you do this, it's going to take a while, and we'll kind of talk about some timeframes and things overall on one of the upcoming slides. But once you do this, it only takes about once a year, like an hour to maybe 3 hours a year to kind of keep this maintained. In the grand scheme of things, that's actually not really a lot of time. So that is something that I do recommend, is just sitting down once a year and just kind of going over all your accounts you signed up for in the past year. The first time I did this, I had a bunch of accounts. It took a while, but now that I've actually done it, it's pretty easy to maintain. It's no longer a challenge, no longer a chore. I'm a lot more aware now about what to do moving forward. But wait, guys, there's more. It's a sales pitch, and I'm joking. Browser cookies. Similar to how organizations are wanting to have all your data, so are browser cookies. By default, a lot of sites, not all of them, but a lot of sites, when you click that allow all cookies button, you're literally just saying, hey, yeah, have everything. There are some sites that do let you be very specific about the cookies you're giving them. And sometimes you don't even need cookies for the site either. It's kind of just that sense of it's almost like a bit of a social engineering tactic. They have a little banner that pops up, and it kind of convinces you that you actually need to give them your cookies to access the site, but you don't really need to. It's dependent on the site, of course, but that is just something to be really aware of as well. Alternative emails. I know a bunch of people that do this, and I love it because when you are in a data breach, you know exactly where it came from. I highly recommend this. I see a bunch of people that will have like eventbrite.handle at blah 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 blah, or Facebook dot blah blah blah, and so they have a specific alias email that they're giving to that specific entity. I don't know about Android specifically, but if you are an Apple user, given my MacBook I clearly am, Apple actually has a really cool function embedded where you can actually do this automatically. You don't have to go ahead and create it for you. They do it all for you. It's actually under the iCloud settings. You can actually log in with Apple, and they create you different aliases for every single login. I personally love that. I do think it's a great way to easily manage something that, without having to create each individual email alias yourself. But also depends on what provider you're wanting to use. If you're wanting to use another email provider, a lot of them offer this as a service for email providers. And changing your data. This is an interesting one because there's so much data out there about us, but it's also, have you ever seen on Zillow how you can clean a house? You can log in, yep, this is my house. Well, once you do that, you can do whatever you want with that data because you've said, this is my data. I've proven this is my data. I can now change that data. That's the great way to kind of change what is out there, almost like a little bit of misinformation, is claiming that data and then changing it or removing it or whatever you want to do with that data. Just putting that out there as an option because that might be beneficial to some people. Going to, a good example of this, would be things like white pages, people looker, things like that. Obviously, over time, once you've opted out from those kind of top-level data brokers, and the bottom feeders are kind of catching up and saying, yep, okay, this data no longer exists. Eventually, you're going to see that data won't be distributed as much, but it's still going to exist as a historical record on things like people looker, white pages, things like that. And so that's a great way to actually claim that data and then remove it because you now own that data and you've proven it's yours, and now you can take control of that data. Statistics, because who doesn't love statistics? Just a little bit of info about the whole data broking, selling information. What I'm referring to is, organizations, and so many organizations do this. They buy and they sell and they trade information from each other. As I'd mentioned, information is incredibly valuable in OSINT. It's valuable to all organizations. Things like, marketing organizations, things like that too. Just in 2022 alone, it is a $300 billion industry. Yes, selling your data is an industry. There are actually projections out there by brokers where they're actually estimating that by 2020, actually I think I typed that wrong. I think it was supposed to be 2030. Yeah, I typed that wrong, my mistake. By 2030, they're estimating $500 billion is the actual estimated value of all of our data. So that goes to show how much our data is worth. But how much is it worth to you guys? Roughly, it would say on average, about 6 hours per year is all it's going to take for you to actually do something about it, to minimize your footprint, to take action on some of these things we've spoken about. There's going to be some people who are going to go ahead and do this, and there's going to be some people who don't. So you kind of got to think about how much time is your privacy actually worth? Because if you go out there and you don't do anything about it, and data, and other organizations have your data and things like that, well, it's unfortunately there is not a way to automate this. It isn't something that you can just go out there and click a button and delete all. And I think that is intentional. I really think that a lot of organizations do that intentionally. So you've got to think about how much time is your privacy worth, and spend that kind of time to invest in your own privacy for future. I do have a challenge. Ice cream social challenge. I have the last EFF Privacy Badger cert bot. My husband and I created this for EFF. There's one left. We have a challenge. The first person that can provide me evidence in a photo form, you need to get strawberry Ben & Jerry's and give it to Zant. Don't ask questions. No questions asked, okay? Okay? Whoever can provide me evidence of that, the first person, via Twitter, Mastodon, LinkedIn, whatever platform, the first person that can find strawberry Ben & Jerry's and give it to Zant, I'll give you a hint, Zant is a goon, wins the very last one of these Privacy Badger EFF badges. Thanks, guys.